In the summer of 1971, in the basement of Stanford University's psychology building, 24 young men, carefully selected for their psychological stability and moral character, entered what would become one of the most disturbing revelations about human nature ever documented. They were good people, sons, students, volunteers who had passed extensive psychological screening. Within 6 days, these same young men would transform into something unrecognizable. Guards would become sadists, prisoners would become broken shells, and Dr. Philip Zimbardo, watching from behind one-way glass, would witness the birth of monsters in real time, forcing him to confront a truth so disturbing that it would haunt him for the rest of his life. Evil is not born, it is made, and it can be made from anyone, including you and me. This is the Lucifer Effect. Not the biblical fall of an angel, but the psychological metamorphosis of ordinary people into perpetrators of evil through the alchemy of situation and system. It is the shadow that followed humanity from the killing fields of Rwanda to the torture chambers of Abu Ghraib, from the concentration camps of Nazi Germany to the corporate boardrooms where decisions destroy millions of lives with the stroke of a pen. It whispers the same terrible truth across all of human history. Given the right circumstances, the right pressures, the right permissions, the saint can become the sinner, the healer can become the torturer, and the protector can become the predator. Picture young Franz Stangl, a master weaver in Austria, known for his gentle nature and skill with delicate fabrics. His neighbors spoke of his kindness to children, his devotion to his family. By 1942, this same man would oversee the deaths of 900,000 people as commandant of Treblinka. When asked decades later how such transformation was possible, he spoke not of ideology or hatred, but of small steps, tiny compromises, each one seeming reasonable at the time. First, it was just administrative work, then supervising construction, then efficiency improvements. Each step down the staircase to hell was carpeted with rationalization, until one day he stood at the bottom, no longer recognizing the man he had been at the top. The science behind this transformation is both elegant and terrifying. Our brains, these magnificent organs that give us Mozart and mathematics, are also machines of adaptation. The same neuroplasticity that allows us to learn language and love also allows us to learn cruelty and callousness. Dr. James Waller, who spent years studying perpetrators of genocide, discovered that evil behavior literally rewires the brain. The first act of cruelty activates the amygdala, flooding us with stress. But with repetition, something chilling happens. The brain adapts. What once triggered moral alarm becomes routine. The neural pathways of empathy, like unused roads, grow over with weeds. New highways of dehumanization are paved and widened with each journey down them. Consider the infamous Milgram experiments of the 1960s. Ordinary citizens were invited to participate in what they believed was a study on learning. They were instructed to administer electric shocks to a stranger in another room each time he answered incorrectly. The shocks weren't real, but the participants didn't know that. With each wrong answer, they were told to increase the voltage. 15 volts, 30 volts, 75 volts. The actor in the other room began to grunt with pain. 150 volts. He begged them to stop. 300 volts. He screamed in agony. 450 volts, marked on the machine as danger, severe shock, and then silence. 2/3 of participants, despite visible distress, despite sweating and protesting, continued to the maximum voltage. They weren't sadists. They were teachers, salesmen, engineers. They simply couldn't resist the man in the lab coat saying, "Please continue. The experiment requires it." But the Lucifer effect goes deeper than mere obedience. It begins with what Zimbardo calls the first small step. In his Stanford Prison Experiment, it started with uniforms. Guards were given mirrored sunglasses, de-individuating them, making eye contact impossible. Prisoners were given numbers instead of names. These weren't acts of cruelty, just administrative decisions. but they set the stage. The uniform became a second skin. The role became the identity. Guard David Eschliman later recalled, "I was kind of running my own experiment in there, seeing how far I could push these prisoners." He wasn't David anymore. He was a guard, and guards maintain order. The transformation accelerates through what social psychologists call moral disengagement. It's a psychological sleight of hand where we convince ourselves that moral standards don't apply to our current situation. We use euphemistic language, enhanced interrogation instead of torture, collateral damage instead of dead civilians, downsizing instead of destroying livelihoods. We displace responsibility. "I was just following orders. It's company policy. Everyone else was doing it." We dehumanize the victims. They become statistics, problems to be solved, obstacles to efficiency. The mind, desperate to maintain its self-image as good, performs miraculous gymnastics to reframe evil as necessary, even noble. Watch how this unfolds in modern life. A pharmaceutical executive sits in a boardroom, looking at spreadsheets. The decision to raise the price of a life-saving drug by 5,000% isn't made while looking into the eyes of dying patients. It's made while looking at profit margins and market share. The executive isn't thinking, "I will cause suffering and death." They're thinking, "I will maximize shareholder value." The spreadsheet doesn't scream. The PowerPoint doesn't bleed. And so the pen signs the paper, and somewhere far away people begin to die, not from disease but from poverty. The executive goes home, kisses their children, believes themselves a good person. The system has made them an architect of suffering without ever requiring them to see themselves as such. The digital age has given the Lucifer Effect new vectors of transmission. Behind the glowing screen, stripped of face-to-face accountability, ordinary people become cyber tormentors. The teenager who would never bully someone in person becomes vicious online. The professional who maintains decorum in the office becomes a troll after dark. The distance the screen provides isn't just physical, it's moral. We see this in comment sections that read like catalogues of cruelty. In social media, mobs that destroy lives with self-righteous glee. In the casual dehumanization that has become the background radiation of online life. Each cruel comment seems insignificant, just words on a screen, but multiply it by thousands, and it becomes a digital storm that drives real humans to real despair, sometimes to real death. Yet within this darkness lies crucial knowledge. Understanding the Lucifer Effect isn't just an academic exercise, it's a form of inoculation. Dr. Zimbardo discovered that those who resist transformation share certain characteristics. They maintain what he calls social intelligence, the ability to read situations while maintaining personal autonomy. They practice critical thinking, not just about facts, but about social dynamics. Most importantly, they cultivate what Viktor Frankl called the last of human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in any given circumstances. The first protection is awareness itself. When you know that situations and systems can transform you, you become vigilant. You watch for the first small step. You notice when language begins to shift, when dehumanization creeps in, when moral standards start to seem negotiable. You recognize the uniform trying to become your identity, the role trying to replace your values. This awareness is like a compass in a magnetic storm. It may waver, but it always points toward your true north. The second protection is what philosophers call moral muscle memory. Just as athletes train their bodies to respond automatically under pressure, we must train our moral reflexes. This means practicing integrity in small things when the stakes are low. The person who returns extra change at the store is building the strength to resist larger temptations. The employee who speaks up about minor ethical violations is preparing to resist major ones. Each small act of integrity is a vaccination against future corruption. When the moment of testing comes, and it will come, your response will flow not from deliberation, but from habit. The third protection is connection to moral anchors outside the immediate situation. In the Stanford Prison Experiment, the only guard who consistently refused to abuse prisoners was the one who maintained strong connections outside the study, a girlfriend who reminded him of who he really was. We need what Aristotle called moral friends, people who know our values and will hold us accountable to them. We need practices that reconnect us to our humanity: meditation, prayer, time in nature, art. Whatever reminds us that we are more than our current role or situation. But perhaps the most powerful protection is the cultivation of what Hannah Arendt called the habit of thinking. Evil, she observed while covering the trial of Adolf Eichmann, is often banal precisely because it is thoughtless. It flows from people who have stopped questioning, stopped reflecting, stopped imagining the human consequences of their actions. The antidote is not just thought, but a particular kind of thought, the ability to have an internal dialogue, to be, as Arendt put it, two in one, to maintain an inner witness that observes and questions our outer actions. This inner witness is strengthened by studying moral exemplars, those who resisted when others conformed. During the Rwandan genocide, Paul Rusesabagina, a hotel manager, saved 268 lives by refusing to see Tutsis as cockroaches, the dehumanizing term promoted by the killers. He maintained what he called the soft voice, his conscience that whispered beneath the screaming propaganda. When killers came to his hotel, he didn't see uniforms or authority. He saw lost young men drunk on power and blood. He spoke to them as humans, reminded them of their mothers, their children, their futures after the madness ended. His soft voice awakened theirs, if only temporarily, but long enough to save lives. The fourth protection is what we might call prospective moral imagination. It's the ability to project yourself into the future and ask, how will I feel about this action in 5 years? What will I tell my children? What would the person I aspire to be do in this moment? This temporal perspective breaks the grip of immediate pressure. It's why Harriet Tubman could risk everything to lead slaves to freedom. She was living not in the present moment of danger, but in a future where freedom was possible. It's why Sophie Scholl could distribute anti-Nazi leaflets knowing it meant almost certain death. She was writing for the verdict of history, not the judgment of her contemporaries. The Lucifer Effect also teaches us about systems, not just individuals. Evil flourishes in environments of diffused responsibility, where everyone is guilty means no one feels guilty. It thrives on time pressure that prevents reflection, on isolation that cuts off outside perspectives, on ideologies that provide ready-made justifications for cruelty. Recognizing these systemic factors isn't about excusing individual choices. It's about understanding how contexts can be designed to bring out our demons or our angels. This is why the most effective resistance often targets systems, not just individuals. When Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, she wasn't just defying a bus driver, she was challenging an entire architecture of dehumanization. When Daniel Ellsberg leaked the Pentagon Papers, he wasn't just exposing lies, he was disrupting a system that manufactured and maintained those lies. These acts of resistance create what psychologists call minority influence. They demonstrate that the system is not inevitable, that conformity is not mandatory, that transformation is possible. But here's the paradox that makes the Lucifer effect so insidious. Those most confident they would never fall are often the most vulnerable. In Zimbardo's experiment, the participants who became the most sadistic guards were those who entered confident in their moral superiority. Their certainty became blindness. They couldn't see their own transformation because they knew they were good people. This is why humility, genuine recognition of our capacity for evil, is not weakness, but protection. The person who says, "I could never do that," has already taken the first step toward doing exactly that. The person who says, under the right circumstances, I could do terrible things, so I must be vigilant, has taken the first step toward resistance. Consider the story of Oskar Schindler, the Nazi Party member who saved 200 Jews during the Holocaust. He didn't start as a hero. He was a war profiteer, a womanizer, a man who joined the Nazi Party for business advantages. But something shifted. Perhaps it was when he witnessed the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto, saw a young girl in a red coat wandering through the massacre. Suddenly the dehumanized mass had a face. The system revealed its true nature, and Schindler could no longer unsee it. His transformation was not from evil to good. It was from thoughtless participation to conscious resistance. He used his position within the system to subvert it, spending his entire fortune to save lives. The same man who had exploited Jewish labor for profit ended up risking everything to save Jewish lives. The Lucifer effect can work in reverse, but only when we wake up to what we've become. This awakening often comes through what psychologist Erwin Staub calls moral exemplars, witnessing someone else resist when we're conforming. In the Milgram experiments, compliance dropped dramatically when participants saw another person refuse to continue. In the Stanford Prison Experiment, the sadism might have continued indefinitely if not for Christina Maslach, Zimbardo's graduate student and future wife, who visited the prison and was horrified. "What you're doing to those boys is terrible," she told him. Her outside perspective shattered the closed moral universe of the experiment. Sometimes all it takes is one person saying, "This is wrong," to break the spell. The military has studied the Lucifer effect extensively, particularly after Abu Ghraib. They discovered that units with strong ethical leadership and clear moral codes were far less likely to commit atrocities, even in the same brutal environments where other units fell into sadism. The difference wasn't in the individuals. It was in the culture created by leadership. When commanders modeled restraint, emphasized rules of engagement, and maintained connections between soldiers and their humanity, the darkness could be held at bay. When commanders dehumanized the enemy, turned a blind eye to small cruelties, created a culture of whatever it takes, they opened the door to horrors. This points to a crucial truth. We are not just responsible for our own souls, but for the moral ecology we create around us. Every time we laugh at a cruel joke, we make cruelty more acceptable. Every time we stay silent when we witness injustice, we add our weight to the side of evil. Every time we treat someone as less than human, whether a homeless person, a political opponent, or a service worker, we practice the mental habits that, under pressure, can transform into atrocity. We are all gardeners in the field of human behavior, and we must ask ourselves, what are we watering and what are we allowing to grow? The technology of the 21st century has created new laboratories for the Lucifer effect. Social media algorithms that maximize engagement often amplify our worst impulses. The angry comment gets more likes than the thoughtful one. The cruel takedown goes viral while compassion is ignored. We find ourselves in digital systems designed to reward our shadow selves. The ordinary person who would never scream at someone in public finds themselves typing vicious attacks. The professional who maintains careful ethics at work spreads conspiracy theories that destroy lives. The parent who teaches their children kindness models cruelty online. We become different people in different contexts, and the architects of these platforms know this. They profit from our transformation, but understanding the Lucifer effect also reveals the opposite possibility, what we might call the Gandhi effect or the Mandela effect, the transformation of ordinary people into moral heroes through the alchemy of conscious choice and supportive systems. Just as evil is made, not born, so too is goodness. The same situational forces that can corrupt can also elevate. The same group dynamics that can produce lynch mobs can also produce movements for justice. The same human plasticity that allows us to learn cruelty allows us to learn compassion. This is where ancient wisdom meets modern psychology. The Buddha spoke of right mindfulness, maintaining awareness of our thoughts, feelings, and actions moment by moment. This is precisely the practice that protects against unconscious transformation. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations about examining himself each night, reviewing his actions and motivations. This is the habit that maintains the inner witness. Lao Tzu taught that knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. This self-knowledge is the foundation of resistance to situational corruption. The Sufi poet Rumi wrote, "Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment." This bewilderment, the recognition that we don't fully know ourselves, that we're capable of both good and evil, is not confusion, but clarity. It keeps us humble, vigilant, questioning. The person who is bewildered by their own capacity for evil is far safer than the person who is certain of their goodness. Certainty sleeps. Bewilderment keeps watch. In Japan, there's a concept called hansei, deep reflection on one's actions, not just to identify mistakes, but to understand the conditions that made those mistakes possible. It's not self-flagellation, but self-knowledge. After World War II, many Japanese engaged in profound hansei about how their society had transformed into one capable of terrible atrocities. This reflection wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary. It's the kind of reflection our entire species needs about our capacity for evil, not to paralyze us with guilt, but to empower us with awareness. The question then becomes, how do we design our lives and societies to bring out our angels rather than our demons? How do we create what Zimbardo calls heroic imagination? The ability to see ourselves as capable of heroic action when the moment demands it. This isn't about grand gestures, but about daily practices. It's the teacher who refuses to give up on a difficult student when the system says they should. It's the doctor who sees a patient, not a case number, even after a 16-hour shift. It's the police officer who de-escalates when they could dominate. It's the citizen who speaks up at the town meeting when it would be easier to stay quiet. These acts of everyday heroism are like antibodies in the social bloodstream. They remind us that we have choices, that systems are not destiny, that we can maintain our humanity even in dehumanizing conditions. They create what psychologist Philip Zimbardo calls positive deviance, breaking the rules in the direction of compassion rather than cruelty. When everyone else is looking away, they look directly. When everyone else is following orders, they follow conscience. When everyone else is silent, they speak. The ultimate lesson of the Lucifer Effect is not despair, but vigilance, not cynicism, but wisdom. Yes, we are all capable of evil under the right circumstances, but we are also capable of resistance, of transformation in the opposite direction, of choosing light when darkness would be easier. The same experiments that revealed our capacity for cruelty also revealed heroes, the participants who refused to continue shocking, the guards who smuggled food to prisoners, the individuals who maintained their humanity against all pressure. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This includes accepting our shadow, our capacity for evil. But this acceptance is not resignation. It's the beginning of conscious choice. When we know what we're capable of, we can choose otherwise. When we recognize the situational forces trying to transform us, we can resist. When we see the first small step toward evil, we can take a step in the opposite direction." As you leave this meditation on the Lucifer Effect, carry with you not fear, but awareness. You are not immune to evil, but neither are you destined for it. Every day, in small ways and large, you face the choice between conformity and conscience, between role and soul, between system and self. The God who tortured and the God who protected were separated not by fundamental nature, but by choices, 1,000 small choices, that added up to transformation in one direction or another. Watch for the uniforms trying to define you. Listen for the language trying to dehumanize others. Notice the systems asking you to surrender your judgment. Feel the pressure to conform, to go along, to take the first small step. And in those moments, remember, you have a choice. You can be the one who says no. You can be the outside voice that breaks the spell. You can be the exemplar who shows others that resistance is possible. You can be the gardener who waters compassion instead of cruelty. The Lucifer Effect is real, demonstrated in laboratories and battlefields, boardrooms and chat rooms. But so is its opposite, the human capacity to resist evil, to maintain goodness under pressure, to transform situations rather than be transformed by them. We are not angels or demons, but humans, capable of becoming either. The question is not whether we will be tested. We will. The question is whether we will be ready, whether we will recognize the test when it comes, whether we will have the strength to remain human when it would be easier to become a monster. The choice, terrible and beautiful, remains always in our hands.